let's talk about trouser waistlines. Hi everyone, my name is Nuria and this is my sewing journey. And for today's video, we're going to talk about waistbands. We've done a lot of research on this channel about trouser foundations. So you know that there are 4 foundations, and from these 4 foundations, you can modify them in so many ways that it's a little bit insane. So today we're going to look into one of those modifications, which is the waistline and the waistband. Just as a disclaimer, most of the things I'm going to be talking about today can also be used when modifying skirt foundations. I'm going to separate this video into 2 parts. We're going to talk first about the waistline and second one about types of waistbands. I think you might think these are all basic things, but let's get through them because sometimes they might not be as easy as you think. If we start with the waistlines, we all know that we have the natural waistline. I believe all the patterns should be made to fit your natural waistline. This is because once you have your waistline, it's easier to go lower or to go higher. It's way easier than if you pattern it for a low waist and then what do you do with that? For this case, the trousers are going to fit on the thinnest part of your body. Normally, all bodies are different, so this might not be your case, but normally we say that the waistline is the thinnest part of your body. Second option that we have is the high-waisted pants, and this is normally said to be between 6 and 7 centimeters above your waistline, but as always, all bodies are different. Some people have shorter torso and some people have longer torsos, so whatever works for you, you just know that you have a problem here that you cannot go higher, if you know what I mean. So until you can, that's how high you can go. The high waistline is fairly easy to pattern. The only thing you have to do is you trace front and back of your pants pattern and then you flip them as if it was a mirror and you trace them again as high as you want. So these 6 or 7 centimeters that I was talking about. You trace the side seam, you trace the center front, you trace the center back and the darts. I know this method might look a little bit weird because I think the shape of our body is not the same going from the hips to the waist than from the waist to your busts. But I think it's a way to start, so do it like that, try them on, and from there you can modify. This is more of a guideline on how to add into that waistline. The next one is the low-waisted pants. The norm again says that this is 5 centimeters below your waistline. Also depends on the book, but also depends on you. If you want them lower and you feel comfortable with that, go ahead. There's no way on earth you're ever going to see me wearing low-waisted pants, but hey, Britney Spears did it in her moment, and if you like it, you like it. To pattern this is even easier than the high-waisted pants. What you have to do is trace your pattern and just lower as much as you want, and take into account that depending on your body type, you'll have to lower the front more than the back. This again will depend on if you have a flat stomach or you have a round stomach. So try on, play around and see what suits you best. And remember that it's easier to cut into the fabric instead of adding into the fabric. So I would maybe lower it the centimeters that you want, and if you think that you need more, I would cut it more. And this takes us into point number 2, which is waistbands. There are 3 different types of waistbands: straight, curved, and facing. So let's go through them. Straight waistband is basically a rectangle with the length of your waist plus sommies, depending on if you have to add a button or if it's for trousers with a fly and you have to add that length, or if you only want to add an invisible zipper, then you don't have to add any at all. This waistband is very useful because it's really simple to make, so we love that when drafting pattern. The only problem is that this waistband assumes that you have a rectangular body, and normally it's not the case. So in my case, for example, I have a curved back and that waistband doesn't suit me that well. So if you have a straight torso and a straight back, this is going to work perfectly for you. Also, if you want to add an elastic, for example, this is the perfect waistband because the elastic is going to cover all those gaps that you would have with a straight waistband if you were me. If you don't have a straight back and a straight torso like me, what you're going to see is some gapping, mostly at the back. You're going to see it for sure when you sit down, that there's a little space there between your waistband and your back, but this can be solved with the curved waistband. Now, there are two ways of creating this curved waistband, and one is the right one and one is the wrong one, if you ask me. I'm gonna start with the wrong one. You will see a lot of people creating the curve, a random curve. I don't like that because I'm an engineer and I like accurate things. How this method works is basically you get a piece of string and you attach, on one side you attach it to a flat surface with some tape, and on the other side you attach your pen or your pencil or whatever you're going to use. And then you're going to trace the length of your waistband, so what I said before, your waist plus sommies if you're adding buttons. You're going to create that curve, and then you're going to add the width that is normally around 4 centimeters. Those are the ones I use. Of course, it can be different. And there you go, you have your waistband. With this method, you can see later on when you're putting all the pieces together that the waistband on the outer curve is not going to fit on the pants because you did not calculate how big that curve had to be, and we don't want to do maths when we're drafting, you know? So the right way of doing it, in my opinion, of course, you can do whatever you want, I'm not going to judge you, is to follow the shape of your waist that you already have in your pattern. So what you have to do is trace your pants, the front and the back, the width that you want your waistband to be. So for example, I said before, 4 centimeters. From those centimeters, you separate each piece, ignoring the darts, and then you attach them together. So you would do the front left with the front right, with the back left with the back right. And then you see that this already creates a little curve. And to that curve, to the center front, you're going to add these ease that you want for the button, and you smoothen the curve. And that's it. You have a curve that for sure is going to fit on your waist, and for sure it's going to fit your pants. And that's because you used something that you already had, instead of having to get some string and get pants and make it too complicated. But again, you choose which one you prefer. And the third type of waistband is called the facing. I don't know if it's considered a waistband, but it's basically a way to make sure that your pants are going to stay in place. And you do that by adding an extra layer of fabric with some interfacing on the waist. This method is mostly used, I would say, when you want to add an invisible zipper, or if you just want to have a hidden waistband. I think I would only use it when adding an invisible zipper. I don't know. And the procedure you have to follow is kind of exactly the same as the curved one. You're going to trace the front and back patterns of your trousers, and you have to trace a little bit more than for the waistband. So if for the waistband it was 4 centimeters, now it's going to be around 10 or 15 centimeters. And when you have to sew it together, what you have to do is just sew it as if it was another pair of pants that you have to attach with your pants. I don't know if you know what I mean. It's important to know that for these 3 methods, you always have to interface all the waistbands. So straight, interface, curve, interface, facing, interface. The only reason for not interfacing the waistband is if you're going to use an elastic, because I guess that's sturdy enough. But for the rest, you need to do it. And more if you are going to add buttons, because otherwise the buttonhole is going to be a mess.
Let's look at the summary of everything we talked about. If we start with the waistlines, we can compare them to each other, and here we can see how the waistline sits for high-waisted pants, for normal waistline pants, and for low-waisted pants. If we also compare the different types of waistbands, here we can see all of them, and we can see the rectangular with elastic, the rectangular without elastic, the curved waistband, and then finally the facing. The differences are more noticeable when sitting down, of course, and you can see how the ones that use the pattern are the ones that sit the best and create the less gapping between your waistband and your back. And this would be, of course, the elastic one, the facing, and the curved waistband.
But yeah, this is everything for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something as always. And now that we know how to modify the waistline, the last thing we have to learn is how to modify the leg lines, and then you'll probably be masters at this. So I'll see you soon, and don't forget to subscribe. Bye!